Hey guys, welcome back to Guys That Magic. It's me, it's Steven, and today I'm doing my first deck tech. That's exciting. So fun fact, over on our Patreon, we do this fun thing where we put out votes for our patrons to vote on. So essentially, I put out a post. I kind of wanted to make a deck tech on some of the new cards from the Tarkir Dragonstorm set, and we had a tie. So we had a tie between the set commanders that you could pick from, so Kotis the Fangkeeper, and then the other Taval. And I wanted to do Kotis. I've never done kind of like a fun deck tech where it was basically built around one card like this to be Voltron-y to a certain extent, but I love Villainous Wealth, and I think that's such a fun card to kind of play around with and its mechanics. And Kotis is a Villainous Wealth on a stick. So it is a really fun deck to kind of play. You get to basically cast all your opponent's stuff for free, and essentially you're gonna really piss your opponents off. So this might be one of those commanders where if you have a pretty sensitive play group, maybe not the best pick, but it is going to be a fun pick. But before we get started, if you don't know what Kotis does, let's go ahead and read Kotis. So Kotis the Fangkeeper is a legendary creature zombie warrior. It's a 2/1. It says whenever Kotis deals combat damage to a player, exile the top X cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. So really going to be basically taking the best cards in our opponent's deck. So yeah, that's going to be fun. But let's go ahead and dive right into the video. But we'll go ahead and get right into it. So I'm going to break this video down a little bit. So we'll obviously go into creatures, artifacts, instant sorceries, enchantments, and lands. But I'm going to break it down just a little bit further as well. So first card I'm going to talk about is going to help us with ramping in our deck. So it is going to be Bloom Tender. You love it, you love it. So for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So Kotis will give us at least 3. So we're going to be good there. We're going to go ahead and jump into another creature package. This is my +1/+1 package for this deck. So Bristly Bill, Spine Sower. It's got landfall, so whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. You can also pay 3 and 2 green. Double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So this is going to be really fun when we're just putting those +1/+1 counters on Kotis. Next up is Forgotten Ancient. This is going to be another +1/+1 counter kind of strategy. So Forgotten Ancient, whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of +1/+1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto another creature. So essentially we're just taking all the +1/+1 counters from our opponents casting their spells, swapping them over to Kotis, and just going from there. 13th Doctor kind of helps us with the +1/+1 counters for casting spells that, we didn't cast them from our hand. So it has Paradox. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It's probably going to be Kotis, but we do have some other spicy creatures we can do that with. And then my favorite part, at the beginning of your end step, untap each creature you control with a counter on it. So this is kind of fun because essentially, when you're building a Voltron-y kind of deck, if you swing and your commander doesn't have vigilance, you're kind of open for attacks. So having the 13th Doctor out there, not only as a blocker for maybe something small, hopefully, or we can give this one +1/+1 counters, having Kotis being huge, because that's the goal of the deck, being able to untap at our end step is going to be very helpful for us to make sure that we can keep up a big blocker, and it's indestructible. So definitely keep that in mind. Moving on, helping out our commander a little bit more, I have Corsi Revenant. So this card is pretty fun. So it's basically flying, death touch, and lifelink. But if it's in your graveyard, you get to do the renew thing. So 2 and a black, you get to exile this card from your graveyard, put a flying counter, a death touch counter, and a lifelink counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. So obviously we're doing this on our turn, but being able to put evasion with flying, you get to put death touch, so that way if you're untapping Kotis, or if you're keeping it as a blocker for any reason in the early game, you're able to basically say, hey, you can swing at me, my commander's indestructible and has death touch. Do you really want to do that? And then also lifelink, because in this deck you're going to be targeted a lot, so being able to regain the life, and with Kotis being huge, it could be a very large amount of life you're gaining each time. Also have Guardian Augmenter. This is 2 and a green. So flash, so kind of fun to kind of put out as a little combat trick. I love my combat tricks. But it says commander creatures you control get +2/+2, and then commander creatures you control have hexproof. So if somebody's trying to target our stuff, we have this 3 mana open. We're going to flash this in, say, I don't think so. Maybe next time. Let's move on to another creature package. Basically, I want to double up the amount of times we can do stuff with our commander. So Roaming Throne and Felix 5 Boots are here. Roaming Throne, obviously it's been in Magic long enough to where people love or hate this card. As it enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type, so we're either going to be choosing zombie or warrior. There's really not too many other zombie warriors in this deck, if at all, so basically we're just doing this for Kotis. It might be a silly addition, but being able to double up on the triggered ability of Kotis when it swings and attacks is going to be insane. But yeah, so Roaming Throne will enter the battlefield of that chosen type, and then if a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time. So being able to do the thing twice, really awesome. But what's better than being able to do the thing twice? Let's go ahead and make you do it 3 times. So Felix 5 boots, if a creature you control dealing combat damage to a player causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So this one is a little bit better in our deck because we do have some cards that are doing certain things on attack. So it's definitely going to help us out and maybe get some extra fun stuff going on. The last set of creatures I'm throwing in here are essentially going to be just some fun stuff and payoffs. So Agent of Treachery, people are going to hate you for playing this, but I love it. I'm not going to lie to you. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. Your stuff's my stuff. That's what this whole deck is about. But it also says at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. Let's just draw some cards for basically having stuff that you guys gave us. That's fantastic. I love it. Ancient Cellar spawns also here. Each spell you cast that's a demon, horror, nightmare costs 1 less to cast. We don't care about that. That's flavored text for us. But the part we do care about is going to be the second piece of text that says whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast it was less than its mana value, target opponent loses life equal to the difference. So essentially for casting spells for free, we're going to be doing a lot of damage to pretty much a lot of people. So that's going to be really fun. Ancient Cellar Spawn is a fantastic card for this deck, comes in super cheap, and it's got a pretty big power toughness. We also have Brain Stealer Dragon. It's got flying. It says at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of each opponent's library. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. If you cast a spell this way, you may spend mana as though it were any color to cast it. It also says whenever a non-land permanent opponent owns enters the battlefield under your control, they lose life equal to its mana value. So Brain Stealer Dragon is letting us do the thing at our end step. Also, if Kotis is around, whenever those things enter the battlefield, our opponents are losing life. It's going to be a good time. We're stealing our opponent's stuff. We're draining life. It could be a very fast game. Gonti Knight Minister is the last creature I added. Whenever a player casts a spell they don't own, that player creates a treasure token. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller looks at the top card of that opponent's library and exiles it face down. They may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Mana of any type can be spent to cast it this way. So again, Gonti doing the thing for us. We're getting to make some treasures. So hopefully we're able to just turn out a whole bunch of stuff, which is going to be really amazing. This does possibly help your opponents out as well, because if they are swinging at your opponents, they will get that card advantage from the top of your opponent's library. But it's a game I'm willing to play. I'm a gambler. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the sorcery department now. I did add a few cards for ramp because obviously Kotis is probably going to get targeted quite a bit, so we might need some mana to help cast it again. So Cultivate Kodama's Reach, basically the same thing. We are searching our library for 2 basic lands. We're revealing them. We're putting 1 on the battlefield tap, 1 into our hand, then we're shuffling. I also have 3 visits. We're searching our library for a force card, put it on the battlefield and shuffle. Pretty easy kind of ramp package. Should be pretty much in any kind of style green deck that you're going to have to be casting some big stuff. This next set of sorceries, I did kind of put in a couple different things. So first one up is going to be Culling Ritual, just because we might need to remove some things. So Culling Ritual, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. You can either add a swamp or a forest for each permanent destroyed this way. This can be very game breaking, depending on what your opponents are doing. If they're doing like token strategies, this kind of wipes the board of those. If they have any small artifacts like Soul Ring or Arcane Signet or anything like that, it's going to be pretty detrimental to your opponents and really help you out, because you are basically getting all this mana to redo the things that you want to do. But to help you do the thing you want to do, let's go ahead and find that thing faster. We have Demonic Tutor here. Search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. If there's something you want to do in particular or a way you need to get around things, this will be very easy to basically find that thing. And obviously you can't have a Kotis deck that is Villainous Wealth on a stick without Villainous Wealth. So I threw it in here for a sure good time. So target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. Who said if your commander's not on the field, you can't do the thing? Not me, because we're going to do the thing. Now we're going to move on to our instant department. I kind of split this up a little bit because I do have some instants that are going to help Kotis do the thing and then also help Kotis stay on the field. So with that being said, I'm going to go to our counter package. I did add 5 counter spells to this deck because obviously board wipes are very detrimental, or things targeting Kotis to remove it will hurt us greatly as well. Arcane Denial is up first. Counter target spells controller may draw 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, and then you draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep as well. So your opponent might get 2 cards, you get a card. Let's just hope that they don't draw anything cool, right? Because that never happens. Counter spell is up next. Pretty simple. Counter target spell, fantastic counter spell in all the realm. We also have negate here. It says counter target non-creature spell, because, you know, sometimes board wipes are non-creatures, right? I think, for the most part, right? We also have an offer you can't refuse. Giving treasures to your opponents might not be great, but whatever they're casting that you want to counter is probably a better trade. So counter target non-creature spell, its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. We also have Swan Song, counter target enchantment, instant or sorcery spell, its controller creates a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying. I have a feeling that bird's going to be pecking at us quite hard after we counter whatever our opponents are casting. Let's go ahead and move on to some other instants that are going to help us remove certain game pieces from our opponents that are going to be hurting us. So we have Assassin's Trophy up first. Destroy target permanent opponent controls. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield and shuffle. Some really fun tech. We also have Beast Within. So destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Putrefy. Destroy target artifact or creature. It can't be regenerated. Comes into play sometimes. And a really fun one that's kind of interesting to me is Leadership Vacuum. Target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone. Draw a card. So a fun little cantrip here. We are spending 3, but if our opponent is doing some funky stuff with their commander that we don't like, let's go ahead and put it back in the command zone. Because to be quite honest with you, no shenanigans at my table other than the shenanigans I am doing. Let's move on to 2 more instant cards that'll help protect Kotis a little bit. So we have Tyvar's Stand. Target creature you control gets +X/+X and gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. This is a really fun one because, again, combat trick. Tyvar's Stand, we swing with our commander, they declare no blocks. We can go ahead and pump Kotis to make sure that it gets a little bit more damage, so we're able to cast some more fun things from our opponents. We also have Snakeskin Veil. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, gains hexproof until end of turn. So basically protecting Kotis and making sure that we're able to do the thing more. These next 3, we have Astarion's Thirst. Exile target creature, put X +1/+1 counters on a commander creature you control, where X is the power of the creature exiled this way. So if our opponent's playing a pretty big, powerful creature on their board, and we want Kotis to be basically what they had, Astarion's Thirst is here. We also have Invigorate. If you control a forest, rather than pay this spell's mana cost, you may have an opponent gain 3 life. Target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. I'm making that trade any day of the week. I will gladly give you 3 life to make sure Kotis gets +4/+4 and then swings at you. So essentially, you really lost 1 life, but maybe a little bit more. Overprotect as well as here. Target creature you control gets +3/+3 and gains trample, hexproof, and indestructible on the turn. For 2 mana, this card is fantastic. Thank you, Bloomborough. You had so many great cards. And these last 2 instants are here to kind of help us find things a little bit faster. So we have Vampiric Tutor for 1 black. So essentially we're searching our library for a card, putting it on top. We're losing 2 life, but that card we're grabbing is going to give us so much value that it will negate any of the life lost for this card. Surge of Brilliance is pretty amazing as well. It has Paradox, so draw a card for each spell you've cast this turn from anywhere other than your hand. You can also foretell it for 1 and a blue. The foretell is kind of fun because you can, combat trick it out. But I think the fun part here is the Paradox. So basically casting all of our opponent's spells from exile. This is going to draw so many cards to the point where we just continue to have protection. And basically Kotis allowing us to cast those cards for free. Us using Surge of Brilliance for 2 mana. We're going to be able to hold up mana for protection, pumping Kotis for the next turn, or just doing really whatever we want to do. We're taking control of the game pretty well. All right, let's move on to some artifacts now. So we're going to move on to some artifact ramp. So we have the traditional 3 greatest ramp cards in Magic. For artifacts, we have Arcane Signet, Fellwar Stone, and Soul Ring. I don't feel like I have to delve too much into this. I feel like we all know what they do. And then we also have the talismans for our colors. So Talisman of Curiosity and Talisman of Resilience. The Talisman of Curiosity will tap for a green or a blue. Talisman of Resilience will tap for a black or a green. And we also have Swiftfoot Boots. Swiftfoot Boots very important in this deck because Lightning Greaves, although is great, Lightning Greaves have Shroud. We do have a bunch of enchantments later that we'll talk about that we wouldn't be able to target Kotis because of the Lightning Greaves. So just giving our commander hexproof, although I do love my lightning greaves. I love them more than Swiftfoot boots. In this instant, they are not better. So Swift boots is here to stay. These next set of artifacts we're going to be talking about are basically artifact equipments. So there are quite a few, so bear with me here. We have Belt of Giant Strength. So equipped creature has base power and toughness 10-10. And then also has equipped 10, which is pretty aggressive and might be hard to get around. But this ability costs X less to activate, where X is the power of the creature it targets. So if Kotis is already pretty big, it's going to reduce the amount of equip costs that we have to worry about here. And I don't think we're going to have an issue paying maybe even 0, which will be kind of fun. Bone Sabers is also a really fun one. So whenever equipped creature attacks, put 4+1/+1 counters on it, equip cost of 3. Fantastic card. Putting 4+1/+1 counters on Kotis is going to get pretty aggressive. We also have Power Fist. Equipped creature has trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. This coming down for 2, equip cost 2. This can get out of hand, especially with a lot of the other artifact equipments or even the enchantment hordes we have on the field. So Kotis is going to get huge. Speaking of huge, Excalibur Sword of the Eden is also here. This is 12 cost, but it does have some cost reductions. So the spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of historic permanents you control. And then also equipped creature has +10/+10 and has vigilance, which is fantastic. I love the vigilance text on here. It also has equipped legendary creature for 2. So obviously pretty cheap to equip. It might be pretty cheap to put down, but yeah, let's make Kotis huge. Next set of artifact equipments are going to basically kind of help us out with some protection as well, hopefully. So Sword of Feast and Famine, equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from black and from green. And then whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card and you untap all lands you control. So getting to do the thing with Kotis and also untapping all of our lands is fantastic, making our opponents discard a card, because we don't care about their hand, we just care about what's on top of their library. Dragonfire Blade is also here. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has hexproof for monocolored. So you can try to Swords my commander, you can try to Path my commander, but you're not going to do it. I don't believe you will. It also has equipped 4. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each color of the creature it targets. Obviously Kotis is 3 colors, so we're only going to be paying 1 to equip this. So 1 to come down, 1 to equipped. Fantastic include for this deck. We also have Champion's Helm here. This is going to be a fun one. So equipped creature gets +2/+2. And as long as equipped creature is legendary, it has hexproof. So a little bit more expensive than I would like it to be at 3 mana, but the equip being 1, giving our commander hexproof is going to be pretty solid if we don't have Swiftfoot boots around. The last 4 artifact equipments I'm throwing in, obviously we care about unblockable here. So Brotherhood of Regalia is here for 2 mana. Equipped creature has Ward 2, is an assassin in addition to its other types, and can't be blocked. Equipped legendary creature for 1, and then you can equip for 3. So for 3 mana, we are getting unblockable on Kotis. So this is pretty fantastic. Fire Shrieker is here because obviously we love doing the thing more than once. So equipped creature has double strike. So let's get in for double damage, baby. We also have Inquisitor's Flail. It says if equipped creature would deal combat damage, it deals double that damage instead. If another creature would deal combat damage to equipped creature, it deals double that damage to equipped creature instead. But I do love Inquisitor's Flail. Obviously being able to do double damage is fun. We are doing a Voltron strategy to a certain extent. Obviously we care about casting the thing off the top of our opponent's library. But if we could kill somebody with commander damage, I am here for it 100%. We also have Trailblazer's Boots. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk. With us playing a little bit of a higher power deck, obviously our opponents are probably going to have some non-basic lands. So basically being able to swing in for some damage and not have to worry about anybody blocking is going to be pretty great for us. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the enchantments. I broke this down as well into different segments. So let's go ahead and talk about some enchantments that are going to help us progress the game a little bit more. So Cunning Rhetoric is here for 2 and a black. Whenever an opponent attacks you and or 1 more of your planeswalkers, exile the top card of that player's library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. So being able to basically continue to steal things off the top of our opponent's library, our creatures will help us cast those cards. I think Cunning Rhetoric's pretty good here because it does kind of hopefully stop our opponents from hitting us. Don't hit me. I don't like it. I want to do my thing and have more fun, I think is where I was going with that. Hollowmurk Siege is also a fun new card from the Tarkir set. So as this enchantment enters, choose Sultai or Abzan. For Sultai, whenever a counter is put on a creature you control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. We also have Abzan. Whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains menace until end of turn. I'll be honest with you, we can be putting +1/+1 counters on our commander, but I think the Obzon ability is going to be a little bit more of what we're wanting to go for, giving our commander menace and making sure that we can get more unblockableness, if that's a word, is going to be the best outlook for us. And then we have a background, so that's fun. We have Raised by Giants. Commander creatures you own have base power and toughness 10/10, and are giants in addition to their other types. So a really fun card. It is a little hefty at 6 mana, but having base power toughness 10/10 is going to be pretty aggressive. So I think this was a really fun include. I'm going to talk about 5 enchantments really quickly. All these enchantments basically do the one thing that is probably the most important in our deck. All 5 of these say pretty much the same thing. Enchanted creature can't be blocked. So obviously we want to be able to get through with Kotis. So I put in a bunch of cards that are going to help us do that. So Aether Tunnel, enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and can't be blocked. Cloak of Mist, enchanted creature can't be blocked. Canopy Cover, enchanted creature can't be blocked except by creatures with flying or reach. And it also says enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. So we do have some fun little hex proofiness on Canopy Cover. Obviously, Canopy Cover, if you're swinging at somebody that has flying or reach, you might need some other like evasion when it comes to not being able to be blocked. But I still think coming down to 2 mana, Canopy Cover is a pretty viable option for this deck. These next 2, we also have Security Bypass. It says as long as enchanted creature is attacking alone, it can't be blocked. It also says enchanted creature has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, it connives. So really fun. We're able to get some extra counters on Kotis. I do love the fact that it does say it has to be swinging alone, which sometimes might not be the best thing, but to be honest with you, Kotis is doing so much work for us in this deck that when it swings alone, I'm not too worried about it, because if Kotis is big enough, we're able to deploy more defense, more blockers, we're able to cast some removal spells that our opponents might have. I don't really care if it's swinging alone or if I'm swinging with a huge board state. I think this is going to be perfectly fine. And then we also have Aqueous Form. Enchanted creature can't block. More importantly, whenever enchanted creature attacks, scry 1. I always love scrying to a certain extent. Obviously, if we have that pesky land on the top of our deck that we don't really need, we can go ahead and put it at the bottom of our library. Or if it's something that isn't going to help us out and we need that land, let's go ahead and scry that big mana spell to the bottom. Let's go ahead and try and find that land as quickly as possible. I'm going to move on to 6 more enchantments. These are all enchantment auras that are going to help us progress the game in a really fun way. So Predatory Hunger is up first. Whenever an opponent successfully casts a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on enchanted creature. So for 1 mana, if you guys continue to cast creature spells, Kotis is just going to sit there and get bigger and bigger. Rancor is a really fun one for 1 mana as well. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. Whenever Rancor is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Rancor to its owner's hand. Really good card in Kotis for 1 mana, +2/+0 and trample. If somebody removes Kotis and it's not exiled and it's just going to the graveyard, boom, Rancor is right back in your hand. Super fantastic recursion for this card. We also have Well Rested. This says enchanted creature has whenever this creature becomes untapped, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Then you gain 2 life and draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So just for having an upkeep in the game, we can go ahead and put counters on our commander and draw a card. I'll take that trade. You take that trade? Yeah, I'll take that trade. The last 3 enchantments we'll talk about. First one up is Hydra's Growth. This says whenever it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on enchanted creature. And at the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on enchanted creature. Super fun. Make Kotis huge. I mean, I don't feel like I have to say this anymore. Yeah, we're just doing great here. Next up, we have Strongback. It says enchant creature. Equipped abilities you activate that target enchanted creature costs 3 less to activate. It also says aura spells you cast that target enchanted creature costs 3 less to cast. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it. So whether we're doing our enchantment auras or we're doing our artifact equipments, basically using those for 3 less is pretty solid. So sometimes you can even get your equipments on your commander for free, which is pretty great. So you're able to use that mana for some protection or for some removal. We also have Indomitable Might. This says flash, so combat trick. I love it. It says enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3, and then it also says enchanted creature's controller may have it assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. Boom. Doing the best combat trick in the book. So 4 mana, flash this in. Kotis gets +3/+3. So let's just say on the weekend, Kotis just gets the +3/+3. You're doing this for 4 damage. And even though if you block it, no, you didn't. I'm telling you, you didn't block it. Boom. We're getting in there. Now let's move on to everybody's favorite part of the deck text, the lands. So we did do 34 lands for this deck. Of the 34, I went ahead and added all the bond lands because I think having those are super important. We have Morphic Pool, Rejuvenating Springs, and Undergrowth Stadium. So all these lands will come in untapped as long as you have 2 or more opponents. Morphic Pool for a blue and a black, Rejuvenating Springs for a green and a blue, and Undergrowth Stadium for a black or a green. We also have Zagoth Trion for some more color fixing. This will always enter the battlefield tap, but it is basically a swamp, forest, or island. So if we're fetching for anything that doesn't say fetch for a basic, Zagoth Trion will be able to come onto our battlefield and help fix our mana a little bit more. Let's move on to some utility lands. I threw in Mistrise Village. I love this card. It's probably my new favorite land in Magic. It'll enter tapped unless you control a mountain or a forest. You can tap it for a blue, and then you can also pay a blue, tap it. The next spell you cast this turn can't be countered. Are you dealing with somebody that's countering your Kotis? Not anymore. This deck is primarily green, so I threw in Yavimaya Cradle of Growth for some more mana fixing. Each land is a forest in addition to its other types. And obviously you can't have a deck that cares about your commander getting in for damage without Rogue's Passage. So you can tap it for a colorless, or you can pay 4 and tap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Kotis is going to get in whether you like it or not. So just let it happen. Please, just let it happen. And this last set of lands, you know it, you love it. It's pretty much every kind of basic land that you'll throw in your deck, and also Command Tower. So we have Command Tower, we have 10 forests, 9 islands, and 7 swamps. Simple, short, sweet, to the point. These are the lands I'm throwing in. You can always put in what you like. There's definitely ways to make the mana base a little bit stronger, but I think what is in here is pretty much perfect for the deck. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap up this deck tech for Kotis the Fangkeeper. This was a really fun one. This was also, again, like I said, my first kind of like time doing a deck tech on YouTube. Again, I want to thank our Patreon members for basically responding to that post I put out. This was pretty fun, got me out of my comfort zone a little bit, and I'll keep doing them. I think this is really fun and exciting. If you like what I did to Kotis, go ahead and go down in the comment section down below. Let me know what you would have added, what I shouldn't have added. I'm always reading the comments. I love reading your feedback, and kind of makes me a bit of a better deck builder, and I greatly appreciate that. While you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. We always want to make sure we're growing, and we want to make sure you guys are watching the cool stuff we're putting out. It excites us. We love it. Also in the description, if you want to go ahead and see any more deck techs or want to vote on stuff like that, check out our Patreon. We're pretty active on there, and we also have a cool Discord where we get to talk and even play games with our members of our Patreon, so it's really fun to do that. But on the screen right now are all of those beautiful people I was mentioning earlier. I want to give a special shout out to our Gains Indestructible tier: Brian Gagnella, Daryl Tripp, Demarion Turner, Doc Jerome, Jimmy Ward, Kevo, Larry Killian, Thrifty PSGR, and Tim K. You guys are awesome. And until the next video, hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Peace.